Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what is going on? How are you, sir?
Doing excellent, Bryant. How are you?
I am excellent as well. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Excited to record another episode.
I am too. I'm excited about this topic. I'm excited about all the topics. But every once in a while,
you should be. Because if we're not, we can't expect anybody else to be, right? Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm excited about the topic as well tonight. It's I'm surprised we haven't talked about this already, because it's this particular subject or person has come up in conversation on more than one occasion, and so I'm surprised that we haven't done a profiles in success or profiles of success about this particular person.
Yeah, I'm glad we're finally digging in, and I'm growing to like this particular sort of focus that we have, not this topic in general, I mean specifically, but in general, the profiles of success, bringing them up every once in a while and just really zeroing in on people and pulling out the life lessons, pulling out the wisdom of the ages that we can pull out and apply them to our lives. So that's what we're up to on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly something to be learned from folks that have been successful and continue to be, and things that we can, emulate or at least use as a guide for things that we do in our lives. And it might work for us, it might not. There might be some specific things that kind of only worked for that person, but certainly worth looking into.
Pull out the things that work for you and the rest. So it's like reading a book, or might be a good professional development book of some sort, or might just be a novel. But no matter what it is, there are usually things embedded therein that you think of and that you pull out, and the stuff that you don't like, you discard and move on. To me, that's the real objective of these profiles of success.
Yeah. So before we get started and talk about the important stuff, any comments about your grooming or hair color, anything that you want to share that maybe you've noticed in the last week or so?
What? Where's that coming from? Oh, that's right out of the blue.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, a couple of episodes ago, you talked about how you were looking in the mirror for some reason and happened to notice how brown your hair looked, and just curious if there was anything else you noticed.
That hasn't changed. It remains the same. It's exactly like it was before, and it's slowly fading, but it's all good still.
It's chrome, man. It is chrome.
It's chrome?
It's all chrome.
Huh. I have not heard that term before with respect to the color of hair. Chrome?
Yes.
That's a good
yes.
one.
We are the Graybeard Chronicles, sporting some chrome beards.
Okay.
Nah, they're gray.
All right.
Yeah.
I suppose I'd accept that.
Mostly gray anyways.
Yes.
And get more so every day.
Especially you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I've got more that's not gray left.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
All right, so let's not keep our listeners in suspense any longer. In this Profiles of Success tonight, who are we talking about and why?
We are talking about the one and only Elon Musk. And for those listeners out there who have heard any number of podcasts that we have done, there are various points along the way where he has come up, and he's a guy that I find fascinating. And let me just tell you why real quick. So, first of all, you may or may not have seen the recent news that he and every day it differs depending on what the stock market does. But he was he surpassed what's his first name? Bezos. Jeff Bezos
Yeah.
as the richest man in the world. So here's a guy who was born in South Africa, who has a Canadian mother, South African father, immigrated to Canada when he was 17, and I think entered the United States at about the age of 20. And started attending college in Canada and then continued in Pennsylvania. I think Penn is where he went. And in the period from age 20 to age 49, which is what he is today, he went from somebody who has basically the clothes on his back to the richest man in the world in the span of less than 30 years.
That's amazing to think about.
It is amazing. And when you see something that's so extraordinary like that sort of, and he's not the only one. I mean, just in our lifetime, I mean, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, so on and so on. But that's one of the things that I love about America. And maybe you can do it in other parts of the world. I'm not aware of it, but
right. Well, it's interesting that all three of those guys that you mentioned came out of the tech world, right? Silicon Valley and so on.
Right.
Because that's big, and that's where a lot of those very wealthy people came from during that particular time frame when we were putting ourselves as a country and the world on the map as far as technology goes.
But the thing that's a little bit different about him, let's compare him to Bill Gates. Bill Gates has sort of stepped away. I mean, he's older, of course, and but he's stepped back, and what he created continues under the leadership of other folks. I think he's still very involved in all kinds of things, but mostly in the foundation, I think, that his wife runs now.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is still in the thick of it. He's still fighting the fight. And it's fascinating to watch what happens. And as the CEO of Tesla, as the CEO of SpaceX, and then his fingers in all kinds of other very significant things.
Right.
And one of the real issues that pops out is you hear people, and I actually believe in this, focus on one thing and master it, and take that particular one thing, be the best of the best at that one thing, and
yeah, he certainly does not abide by that.
He doesn't, unless you kind of remove yourself a couple layers from what he's doing. If you take kind of engineering IT principles and apply those, and different, but they're very, very different things.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. He's not. I don't think he's swimming in a bunch of different ponds. He's in one pond, but he's going after a bunch of different fish because there's different varieties or species of what he's focusing on, but all ultimately have that root knowledge around engineering and developing better products to make the world a better place for us to live and experience life. So it's pretty cool. Hey, before we go too far, I want to call this out before somebody back there, or out there, not back there, but out there in the crowd says something about us double fisting tonight. Like, wait a minute, he was just drinking out of a beer glass a second ago, and oh wait, that's a whiskey glass. Yeah, it turns out we're double fisting tonight.
We are.
So Kevin brought some brown ale, and it's pretty decent. It's not the best beer I've ever had, and it's certainly not the worst. But we both agreed that it needed some enhancements.
Right.
So we are enhancing it with a little bit of Jameson.
We won't name the maker of this beer, other than to say it's not Six Bears and a Goat.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Good. Even though that one's in a Six Bears and a Goat glass.
It is.
It's not a Six Bears and a Goat beer, because
yes.
I haven't had a bad one from there, quite frankly.
Thank you for calling that out. I appreciate it.
Yeah. In fact, I gotta say this: the pizza. If you haven't had the New York pizza that they're doing at Six Bears and a Goat right now, oh my goodness! It's only on Thursday, so I think it's after like 3 p.m. on Thursday that you can get it. But it is. I tell you what, man, it is probably the best pizza I've had anywhere that I can think of, anyways.
Wow,
yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And the other thing that I noticed about it was it didn't give me indigestion, and pizza always gives me indigestion.
Huh. Okay.
But that one did not, and I will be back anytime that I can to have some of that. So yeah, 6 Bears and a Goat, New York, and you notice I'm not saying New York style pizza, because they've got, and I'm not going to tell you why, but they've got a special thing going on over there that makes this New York pizza, not New York style pizza, but you'll have to go there and check it out and get the backstory on that to understand what I'm talking about.
Well, thank you, Bryant. And that was completely unsolicited, everyone. That was not something we talked about or he said he was going to do. So
no, and
I
was truly, it's all because I gave you that glass, and we needed to call out that this beer that we didn't think was superb was and I certainly want to call that out. But yeah, great pizza and great beer. So
awesome.
Check it out.
Awesome. All right, so back to Elon for a second, or no, for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, we'll spend the whole podcast talking about it. How about that?
This is why I find these stories fascinating. I mean, we talked about Sarah Blakely. We talked about actually Donald Trump. We talked about Walt Disney, I think, was another one that we did. Yep. And now we're talking about Elon Musk. Success leaves clues, right? And if you look at somebody's life that has these types of extraordinary success that you see, I believe it's worth taking a minute to examine what's going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all of them have good, bad, and ugly, including Elon Musk, and we'll talk about some of that. Ugly, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I'd tell
some had the good, bad, ugly, and uglier.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm really want to focus on. It's more the although now that I say that out loud, maybe it is worth focus on some of that because, for example, I think that the word balance is not a word that really kind of enters his brain at all. There's no balance in his life.
I'm not sure he could define the word balance.
Right. And so if balance is important to you, and I think it should be important to most people, because I think that's a healthy way to approach life. He's not balanced. He's all in. It's all about what he's working on professionally with respect to the businesses that he's involved with or started or co-founded or currently in pursuit of, and everything else. And he says it. Everything else takes a back seat. That's not for everybody. It's for him. And if success leaves clues, that's one of the clues that probably is important to know, that if you have the goal of becoming the richest man in the world in a span of 30 years, you're probably not going to have a lot of balance. You're gonna have to go for it. So that would.
Yeah. What was that actually a goal of his?
No, absolutely no. In fact, no.
I don't know that he ever called that out specifically.
No, in fact, he'll tell you money doesn't motivate me at all.
No, and one of the things I thought was really interesting about him is physical possessions aren't that big of a deal to him either. I think that I would challenge that a little bit, right? So he is certainly in a position to make good on a pledge that he made in like May of 2020 to sell off most of his physical possessions. He also has the means to rent anything he needs as far as homes and cars and whatever. So it's while I hear what he's saying as far as selling off most of his possessions, I certainly don't think he's going without anything.
No. He lives in a world.
Not own them per se.
Yeah.
So I think that's that may be just a little bit of a shell game. Kind of a play on words there. I'm selling all of my or most of my personal possessions. Okay, whatever. But I'm renting everything that I don't have that I need or want.
It's much easier to say that money's not important to you when you have so much of it that you can lose half of it,
right, and
still be in the top 20 of richest people in the world.
I think I read something recently where he lost like $30 billion in a day or something.
Was it the day that he took one puff
smoking dope with Joe Rogan?
Yeah, on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, I don't know, because I remember we talked about that and the fact that I thought it was actually pretty cool. And they just legalized marijuana here in Virginia, right? It's not legal right now, but they voted to make it legal and license it and tax it and so on, effective January of 2024. They're going to stand up an arm of government to regulate it and so on. So you never know. You might see, in addition to the whiskey and the beer. There might be a big ass water bong right here in the middle of the table at some point, or maybe not. It all depends. What do you think?
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, neither did I. Just happened.
Wow.
I had not intended to say that, but when you brought that up about the Joe Rogan experience, I thought, why?
Anything
why
is
not?
possible.
I mean, some of those water bongs are really, they're just like works of art. We should have one here. And, if we're going to have one, then it's legal, then maybe we should use it for its intended purpose or not. I don't know. I still have a problem with that. Even though states are legalizing them, there's still a lot of companies that, have an anti-drug policy, and it's still illegal at the federal level.
It's against federal law.
So,
right.
Yeah, we probably won't be smoking dope on the podcast.
I didn't.
But it was fun to talk about.
I didn't realize the level of depth and experience you had with bongs. So that's an interesting development that is come to light as a result of our conversations.
Well, I've been into tobacco stores and so on, and I have arrested people for possession of said substance. And,
okay.
Sometimes you see those things.
Okay. All right. Very good. That was a good answer.
Not that I've ever smoked one. A long, long time ago, I used to.
There's a song about that.
No, here's a flashback, right? So I remember talking with my Marine Corps recruiter, and they have to ask you, have you ever smoked marijuana or done any other drugs? And they ask you, have you ever smoked marijuana? And I'm like, yeah. And then they ask you how long ago. And after I'd already enlisted and became friends with my recruiter, he joked about some of the guys that he always knew to look for him, right? The guys that came in and he asked them, hey, when was the last time you smoked marijuana? And they look at their watch. That could be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a problem.
Like right before I came in here, because I would not do this without being high.
Okay. All right. I've just discovered another difference between us. I have
What's
never.
that?
I have never.
Never ever?
Never ever.
Never ever danced with the herbal whatever?
Not that I'm trying to think. Well, when I was a child, there was fear of losing my life from my father, who said, if I ever catch you doing this, it will not end well for you. So there was that.
Right.
And then when I got to college at the Coast Guard Academy, they had a zero tolerance. So I wasn't about to get kicked out of that good deal because they were paying for my college. So, and then once I graduated,
that's a wise choice, I think.
And then it was, I became a law enforcement officer at sea after that, and same thing, zero tolerance. So there was no real good opportunity. I mean, I could now, probably, especially after it gets legal in the state of Virginia.
2024. Hold on. Yeah, not right now. You couldn't. It's only a civil penalty now, I think, maybe, but. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But my experience was, prior to being an adult, a responsible adult.
All right, back to Elon.
Yeah, I don't know how we got off that.
We
started talking about smoking dope with Joe Rogan. That's where we went.
So I think, and he has since said, and he said he clarified. He said anybody who watches me on that episode of taking a puff of that, I think it was actually...
I don't want to hear the bullshit Clinton excuse, but I didn't inhale.
No, he didn't say that.
Yeah.
He said, you can tell I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, that's valid.
Because I don't do it like you're supposed to. I mean, there's
why would he, I'm not judging the guy because hey, more power to you. It was legal where he was, right?
He was in California, I think.
Yeah.
There was one puff, and then his stock dropped because people considered him to be unstable when hey, Elon Musk is now smoking dope, so we gotta bail on his company because that's not what somebody of right mind does. That was the reaction to it. So it's amazing when you're on a level like that, you do something, you say something, you get caught with something, I don't know, any old thing. All of a sudden, your stock drops 10%, 20%.
I wonder, and I don't want to take this off on a political tangent, but I wonder if some of those people that think that he isn't of his right mind to do that actually voted for some of the people that decided to legalize it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, it's just important to understand how those dots connect, and sometimes I don't think people think about the end results. When they're putting these people in office, and the writing is on the wall. If you care to pay attention.
Yep.
All right. So what else about Elon Musk should we call out?
I think this is, for me, the single biggest strength that I think we all can and should pay attention to with respect to the thing that I believe he is best at is his ability to envision the future and then to totally be committed and buy into what it is that he's going after. And when you listen to him talk about electric cars, for example, and the impact that can have on the environment and the importance of weaning ourselves off of fossil fuel and converting to electrically operated, battery operated cars, and how that has driven him like relentlessly for the last 15 years for sure. I mean, it's amazing because unlike a lot of people that say they really believe in a cause or they say that they're passionate about something, the big difference between him and most others is he will state that and then he will do it. He will, no holds barred, full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes. I am going to be successful at making this happen. Yeah. And if you know the story about the early days and the early stages of Tesla, he and they were laughed at. They were the laughing stock. Tesla was never going to happen. Nobody outside of Detroit really knows what they're doing when it comes to doing anything in the automotive industry. You can't do that. You don't know anything about what you're trying to do. And here you are trying to, and they just didn't take him serious because they thought it ain't going to happen. And he was like, I'll tell you what, you guys just get out of the way. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And someday.
Well, and he infused a boatload of cash too, right? They were about to go bankrupt at some point.
Many times. Yeah.
So he's putting his money where his mouth and his passion and his beliefs are and making it work. You mentioned earlier that you thought he was a fascinating guy, and I have that very same thing written down. I think he's fascinating. I think he's brilliant, and I think he's quirky as hell too. Right?
No doubt.
And no doubt. If you spend any time watching any videos of him and the way that he responds and processes questions prior to responding, it's obvious that the wheels are turning in there, and it really is interesting to watch how he goes about things. And he doesn't clearly. I don't think he marches to the beat of the same drum that the majority of the human race does. Now, I won't go so far as to say that I don't. I think he thinks of things that nobody ever thought of, because I don't know that. I think that would just be a far stretch for me to make that claim. But what I will say is I think that he acts on the things that he thinks and puts things into motion and ultimately starts working towards them, where others might just dismiss these ideas. They might allow that little gremlin on their shoulder to say, that's freaking stupid, dude, and just leave it at that. But he he thinks about the colonization of other planets. He's just fascinated, or I don't know what another word would be, maybe obsessed with the idea of Mars, and the colonization of Mars. And he firmly believes that as a society, as a race, that we cannot survive the long haul by just staying on this planet, that we have to branch out and expand to living on other planets. And who walks around thinking that? I'm sure there are others out there that think that, but I think he's probably the preeminent one that's out there saying it out loud and actually doing something to make it so. He started SpaceX, and it's just a fascinating story. We're not talking about a guy that had $1 million head start from a trust fund or anything like that, or parents that were pushing him to, be successful. You read the stories about him, you watch some of the videos, and it turns out his dad was a dick, an abusive father. And it sounds like his mother, and watching some of the videos where she's interviewed, sounds like she really had her shit together, and realized at a very early age that there was something special about Elon, the way he was a comprehensive thinker at like age 3, and then ultimately went on to at like age 12 write a computer game that he sold not for a lot of money, but he's 12 years old and he's selling it to a magazine, and that really kind of got him started. And like you said earlier, I mean, he came to the United States with nothing.
Right.
And ended up going to college, get a couple of different undergraduate degrees, and I think he was accepted into Stanford for a PhD program, and went for like a day,
2 days.
yeah. And then left to start an internet company,
Right.
And that was that really what put him on the map, right? What was the name of that company? I got to look at my notes here. Zip2, which was an internet, like a maps and directories, right? So ultimately the internet replacement of the yellow pages and things of that nature, right? So it ultimately, that's what was sold to Compaq for like $307 million. And from there, it was just full steam ahead. But yeah, in a doctorate program in the last 2 days, it's amazing to think about just the bold steps. I think this guy just walks around, and all of the self-limiting things or the guardrails that we put up for ourselves are completely non-existent for him. And he thinks about something and starts figuring out a way to do it.
Yeah, one of the things that's really remarkable is when he first started talking about becoming an interplanetary species and colonizing Mars. People, what's that quote?
This dude's lost his fucking mind.
Well, yeah, there was that, but it's crazy ideas are crazy until they're not.
Yeah,
and
ain't that the truth?
And what's happened, literally, I think, just in the past year because of the incredible success. And if those of you listening haven't become completely aware of some of the amazing technology that SpaceX is coming up with, you got to go check that out, because the rocket technology, all with the intention of continuing to perfect the art until we get to the point where, I mean, we know we can go to Mars. We've landed on Mars a couple times, 3 or 4, maybe
right.
half a dozen times with various things in the rover, and there's one there now sending back amazing. So you can get there. It's an inhospitable environment. We'll have to build a bubble because it's so cold. Although it can get into it can get above zero, and it routinely does during certain times of year. But the fact that when he first started talking about this, people were like, "You have lost. Yeah, you're crazy." It's almost like you talk about people who say,
"Sure, that was the first time you smoked dope there with Joe Rogan."
Yeah, it's like people saying today the Earth is flat. When we know anybody who isn't crazy knows that the Earth is not flat. Okay, so when you say I'm going to go colonize Mars, it kind of fell into that category for a very long time. Like, this is so far out there, there's no way in hell. It takes one way 7 months to get from the time you launch on Earth till you land on Mars. It's a 6-7 month transit one way.
Damn.
And that's traveling at whatever hundreds of miles per second as you're doing. It's amazing how far you got to travel to get there. And then but now people are actually saying, you know what, I can sort of imagine it. And that is where it's a crazy idea until it's not.
Right. That's that shift, right? That little bit of crack, and yeah, it'll start to catch on.
So okay.
Imagine how history is going to record and talk about those folks that ultimately do that. So the first colony of people that live on the planet Mars.
I think it could happen in his lifetime. I do believe.
That's certainly his intent.
That is his intent, and I believe you're right. I think it can happen within the next 30 years. I think that's possible.
Yeah,
there could be.
That's pretty cool to think about.
It's amazing.
And just other stuff. I mean, he just gets involved in interesting and crazy things. People might call them crazy. They're really not so crazy, right? So he's got a company called the Boring Company,
right?
And they have sold a shit ton of merchandise just by the name. Right now, they're called the Boring Company because they set out to bore tunnels. And he had this vision, and still does, about creating a tunnel network around Los Angeles, and because of the traffic problem that's been there for eons, he started this company to work on creating these tunnels and to reduce the cost of them, the size of them. I don't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but he has a phenomenal explanation about the cost prohibitive nature of doing this by today's standards and based on the current equipment that we have access to. And he's figured it out, not down to actually designing the machinery yet, but he's ultimately figured out where the cost savings need to come from, where they can come from by the improving the equipment and making the the overall size of the tunnel smaller and so on. That it's fascinating the way this guy thinks about stuff, and ultimately I think is going to be a part of making it a real thing.
So the thing that I pull out of that, which is the third attribute of lessons that we can take away from a guy like that. First of all, there's the vision. When you have a vision, well, first of all, have one. Think about where you want to end up. Second of all, take the action, like you said. Take the action and relentlessly pursue what it is that you're after, like he does. The third thing is he's so damn logical about all that. He works it out, which is why when he worked out sort of the math problem, the physics problem, the actual numbers on whether or not we can colonize Mars, he determined this actually can be done. When he's talking about boring, the boring company and putting the tunnels in, because he talks about it. He says our transportation system needs to be 3D, much more 3D than it is now, meaning underground, on the ground, above the ground. And so that 3D approach to things, and he can very logically explain, just like you were saying, he can explain why this works. And so taking the time to do the due diligence on what it is that you're envisioning and figure out, can it really be done? And if it can, damn, I'm going for it.
Yeah, and he believes it. Right. And he's got enough belief to make it contagious.
Right.
So that others will get on board, with him and see the vision that he's got, and it's just phenomenal to think about. Can you imagine a tunnel network around Los Angeles and not having to sit in that traffic? Now, I don't spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, but I have been out in that area, and I know the traffic he's talking about. I'd also like him to maybe get a little passionate about the traffic in the Northern Virginia and the D.C. area, because we have some problems here too, as many of us know.
But part of that is the Hyperloop, which is basically the car that's inside a vacuumed tube that travels underground faster than planes can fly, and that's another so you can go from I think it's Las Vegas to maybe to San Francisco in like 30 minutes. That's
impressive.
Yeah,
it's like going to Walmart to pick up a prescription, or going to the bank drive-through. Those vacuum type tubes only big enough to move a car.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, and the other thing that's really impressive, again, that we talk about many times on this podcast is there's all these naysayers in his life. People laughing, people thinking that he's stupid, people thinking that this man is truly out there, not in a good way. And next thing you know, I'm telling you, the way Tesla is going right now, it is going to become the dominant auto manufacturer in America, in the world, in probably a decade. Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. Again, I'm going off on a political tangent here. The current gas prices are certainly going to help people think about that, right? Because they're continuing to go right on up as the days click by.
And when these cars are already, they're doing 300 miles an hour on a charge. And guess what? When you go to recharge, when you're out and about and they have these recharge stations.
Yeah, 300-mile range.
Yeah.
300 miles an hour is not a good way. Not a good idea.
Did I say 300 miles an hour?
That's not a good idea to be doing on our highway system.
300-mile range.
They're not built for that.
The recharges out there are free.
And there's incentive for places to put these recharging stations in and so on. Yeah, I think I don't know. Harley Davidson built an electric motorcycle, and they say that the torque in that thing is phenomenal. I don't know if I could ever surrender my balls enough to ride one, but I want it to sound like a Harley Davidson. I want it to sound like a damn motorcycle.
Yeah.
so maybe we need some recorded music or something that is activated by the throttle.
I think the whatever, I don't know what the model of the Tesla is, but it goes from 0 to 60 faster than any other car.
Yeah, they say that it's absolutely incredible.
It is
the
incredible.
torque in those things.
Right. And that's why people are so excited about it. So yeah, so it's there's just all kind of things to take away from it. And then there are some negatives. We talked about there's no balance in his life. He's totally, completely focused on these pursuits to the detriment, and that's probably the right word, of every other aspect of his life. There's lots of information about the up and down nature of his health, of his weight, and how that's not good.
Right.
There's, there's very much evidence about his family life and his difficulty in relationships because he's just not all there for
Right. Been married 3 times, twice to the same woman. I don't think he's married now. I think he's in a relationship with somebody who's not married now. Got 7 kids, so apparently at some point the intimacy thing was there,
and probably still is. Right.
Yeah.
The woman that he's currently with is significantly younger than him.
Well, and I think it's cool because we talk about things like walking the talk. And the fact that he has 7 children is a big deal because, he talks about the fact that, intelligent people need to procreate and, because we need to leave behind other people that, can continue to carry the torch. And he talks about the fact that our current rate of procreation in the world, that, we're not sustainable. He throws out a number of, I think it's a percentage, and I don't remember. It's like 10 to 1, but it's adult diapers in China outsell infant diapers by however many times, because they've had the 1 child per family rule for however long, and it's just it's
the math problem.
Yeah,
right.
It's a society that's going to die off, and I think we're a lot like that in our country. We need to procreate. I think there's a lot of smart people that aren't having children, and they're probably not having children because they are smart people and they realize that the world can be a jacked up place, and don't necessarily want to leave kids behind in that world. And I think maybe that's a short-sighted way to look at it, because ultimately what you do need to do is leave children that you raise with solid values and that can be contributors to society behind when you pass, so that they can continue on your legacy of doing good things and keeping those good values and so on going in society. So, that I mean, you look at some of the things that are going on out there, and it's clear that there's a certain segment of our society that's not having any problem procreating, and we see where that's getting us. So,
yeah, and you're right. He has said that, and it's probably controversial. It is controversial to some people. He believes, I have to, and people like me have to procreate, so I'm just going to go ahead and screw everything that I can. That's an overstatement. And it would appear, based on some of the interviews that I saw, that he is actually quite involved in his kids' education. And I think that's important. But it is kind of out there. And you're right. If the family unit is the core of a civil society, which many believe is, and I am one of those people, just having, first of all, who is it that gets to decide who gets to procreate more than not, and who's making that judgment? I guess individually people are, but he believes that, and he's around doing it, obviously, and there's probably more children out there that are going to come before it's all said and done. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, if he's doing his very best to take care of them, and but it's not a cohesive family unit. It's just maybe, again, back to that whole balance thing.
Yeah. It's important. It's absolutely important to focus on. So, if you're out there in our listening audience and you are of an age where that is something that's still within your capability, and you've got sound values, and you believe in preserving America, the country that we know and love, and the principles that it was founded on, then damn it, get to it, dude.
Go have
Hop on that
sex.
thing and go to town, buddy. Start making some more little ones like you. Don't hold back.
Wow, didn't see that one coming either. Here we are, telling the audience to go have sex, all within the right parameters.
There's a whole nother podcast on that and how good that is for you, mentally, physically, and so on. But we'll as I hit the microphone here, we'll pass on that for right now. We'll dive into that later.
Right. Yeah. So as we, I think, start to approach the end of this, I would say that I just think that there are some real interesting things that we've hit on that people ought to really pay attention to in their own lives. Make it your own in your own way. But where are you going? And why are you going there? And we didn't talk about passion. He's like totally passionate.
Yeah, it's that belief, right?
Right. So injecting into your vision the passion and all of the reasons. I mean, he's got reasons that are they don't get any bigger. The human race is not in his mind.
Right.
The human race is not going to continue to exist without us becoming an interplanetary species. And so I am going to do everything I can to. And I've read this actually just recently. There are some people out there who've said that's all a ploy. It's all marketing. He's saying those crazy things because he wants to get attention. But the difference is
I don't think that's true.
I don't either, because he's doing it. That's the difference.
Yep.
And there are maybe there's something to it. There are people saying we have so many problems here on Earth. Why doesn't he put all of his big brain power on solving these problems here instead of figuring out some stupid thing about having us go live on another planet? Why would he do that? You can debate those kind of issues.
I mean, he's solving problems we might not even realize we have yet.
There you go.
Because we haven't gotten there. He's that forward thinking. You may know the answer to this, and before we wrap up, we got to talk about it.
I probably do. Sorry.
Nice. Well played. He, for some reason, came up with the idea to build some flamethrowers. And he talked about this on Joe Rogan's podcast. And ultimately, he ended up building, and they committed to building 20,000 of these things and sold them for $500 a piece, right? That's $10 million. Boom, just like that. And sold them out within, a very short time. I don't know if it was a couple of days or a week, but it was a very short time. So I'm listening to that and I'm thinking to myself, what are we thinking about? And what $500 idea for a product have we not put into the market that we could sell 20,000 of them in a week's time?
And why did people buy them? And why did he make them?
Right, because it was something cool.
Right.
And so I would, and I say that, I'm asking that question to you, Kevin, and myself at the same time, but I'm also asking it to people who are listening. What does the world not have? Or, what could you do better than somebody else is already doing that you could sell for $500 and sell 20,000 of them? Think about that and think about how that might change your life. I know I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just think that's cool.
It is very cool. And there are people out there, and it's not just a few, who believe that all of the big ideas have been already sort of discovered. All of the new discoveries have basically run their course, and now we're kind of on the margins of figuring out what we can do to improve our lives as humans. But all of the big stuff has sort of been discovered. All of the big inventions have occurred, and now we're just working on the margins.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
If they believe that, then it's absolutely their truth.
It's their truth. Yeah, but it's just absolutely not true. So know where you're going, go for it with passion, work it out. Damn the torpedoes.
Go through life like no one has ever told you that something was impossible.
And when all the naysayers are around you screaming at you like you're crazy, what are you doing?
Shut them out. Put the headphones on.
Yeah.
Shut them out. blinders on, keep going. The blinders is probably not a good idea. Scratch that. You need to have that peripheral
We're not
vision
horses
going on.
We're not maybe
it's important to have the peripheral vision to see things that might be coming at angles you didn't anticipate. So, anyways, what else have we not called out about? I got to call these out. So, his companies, things that people might not connect the dots with him, right? So, the company that we know today as PayPal is what came out of a company that he started, and what was ultimately purchased by eBay for like $300 million, right? No, I'm sorry. It was over $1 billion, like $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
The $300 million was the one that was purchased by Compaq. So it was like X.com, I think, was the next one, and that one was purchased by eBay and ultimately became PayPal. And the whole idea behind that one was opening up the internet to be able to transfer money and so on without going through the banking system. But I think his brother might have been involved in that with him too. But yeah, sold that to eBay for like $1.5 billion or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, there's another interesting thing. Okay, so everybody may be of the impression that he's had nothing but success. There's been no hard times along the way. I mean, if you know what he's been through, nothing, again, could be further from the truth. He's been, and he said this, days, moments from bankruptcy on things that he's done, businesses that he's run, Tesla and SpaceX being two of them. But one of the difficulties that he has endured is that he was the CEO of PayPal, and I don't think PayPal, I think, was the bringing together of a couple different disciplines and businesses that some of which he was responsible for inventing and others he didn't.
Right.
But he ultimately became the CEO, and then he was voted out by the board. He was removed from that position
while he was out of town or something. Right?
While
he was
on
vacation.
Out of town, right?
It was it was a honeymoon or something that he had been promising his wife and didn't actually get to do. And he went and they removed him as CEO.
And he came back,
bastards.
And if you listen to him talk about that, he said, I could have fought him and I could have created a big stink and just made a big war out of it. But he said they were wrong about what they thought about him, but if what they thought about him was true, it would have been a good and legitimate reason to remove him.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm not going to fight it. And he remains in touch with and friends with these people to this day. And he went on to go different directions and do amazing things. But the point of that being, he has had bumps and failures and stumbles all along the way of a very significant nature, to the point where he was, in the case of SpaceX, he was a day or two away from complete bankruptcy, having to go to beg, borrow, and steal, and in one case ended up finding out that he'd won a major government contract that didn't know he was going to win or didn't expect to, and all of a sudden he was saved. So there's big stuff like that happens, but that doesn't happen if you're not in the arena fighting the fight. If you give up and quit, it's over. You're a bystander. You're watching somebody else figure out how to go to the moon. Yeah. And he's the guy that's doing it. I love that. I do. So,
well, I thank you for picking this topic. I really do. I certainly was familiar with him, who he is, but did not have the knowledge that I now have about where he came from. I didn't know what his start was. I didn't know that he didn't started with nothing basically. Had no idea some of the trials and tribulations that he'd been through, and some of the successes that he's had that aren't necessarily widely published. So it was cool. It was a cool exercise to go through. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Always learning something, and always enjoy having these conversations. So I look forward to the next one.
I walk away, and you walk away, and hopefully everybody else does too that's listening, as better people as a result. Take from this what it is that applies to you and that you can incorporate into your own life, and go make it happen.
Yeah, and if you're a regular listener, or you intend on coming back for the next episode, we'll let the cat out of the bag here a little bit. We're gonna have a guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, but we are going to have a guest next week, so it won't be just the two of us on here, and we're actually going to be in a different location for the recording. But please, make sure you subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on some podcast platform, and make sure that you do that so you can get these notifications on when we post new episodes. And stay tuned for what's to come next week and the guests that we have. And I know we've said this many times, but we're gonna get in the habit of having someone on here at least once a month.
Once a month. That's what we're gonna do from now on. It's not gonna be a goal. It's gonna be an accomplishment.
Yeah. All right. I'm good with that.
All right. You good with that?
At least once a month. Yeah.
At least
absolutely.
once a month, and maybe more. Right.
Yeah. Well, again, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate it, and like to make sure that we remind everybody that no matter who they are, where they are, and what they're doing, between this podcast and the next, they take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.